Welcome back, everybody, to Oscar's Corner Cafe. If you're tuning in right now, the time is about 7:55 in the evening. Today's date is about June 22nd, 2026. We just celebrated Father's Day for for 2026. Guys, I don't think you guys understand how exhausted I am from this weekend, and I'm going to tell you guys in a brief snippet of this episode. Apologies again for my look today. I just decided not to really give a shit. Sorry to be the few moments in, the few seconds in, but I had a rough weekend, dude. And not rough in the sense that I partied and all that, but there was just a lot going on this weekend with the Father's Day festivities. And then my daughter had a game in the city of Sacramento in Northern California. And if you guys don't know where that is basically it's the capital of California, number one. And then number two, we had 3 games with like maybe an hour and a half in between periods where we could actually reset. But unfortunately, you're with parents and Sacramento is hot, man. It's harsh. I thought that it was hot where I live at, but it's Sacramento, dude. If you ain't ready for it, man, the sun will definitely get you. And when you get old or you get older, like I am sometimes, it's like, now I understand why parents do their hardest to really cover up and try to not necessarily be fully exposed in the sun, because after a while, it does mess with you, man. Like it drains you. I don't know if you guys are the same way. I mean, they're supposed to say that the sun is supposed to give you all this energy and you're supposed to be like, oh my God, dude, I'm fucking ready for the day, bro. No, you're not, dude. You're not. It drains the shit out of you. Maybe to kids, it gives them energy, but for me, I definitely do not feel that way. So today, I'm decided to do a little bit of a rough look, just so I can bless you with my ambiance, with my voice. And I'm sorry if I'm being a little bit silly. I'm gonna be a little bit scatterbrained in today's particular episode, but I decided I needed to get this out there just because I needed to get it out there. I dropped a couple episodes, a couple shorts that are doing fairly well right now on YouTube. And, with social media and everything else in between, you need to keep it moving. And I want to do that. Also, a big shout out to my buddy, Lo, my family out in Washington. He recommended a couple of really cool songs that I think I'm going to be incorporating in the videos. So if you see something a little bit different, not so jazzy, that's going to be all him. So I'm going to give him kudos and mad respect. So shout out to Lo. You're going to get the biggest shout out right now, bro. 2 minutes in. Thank you very much. God bless you, and continue watching and streaming and liking. But let's dive in. So what happened over the weekend? So if you guys have not seen me in the past couple of weeks, it's because there's been a lot of changes in my life, right? Well, obviously you guys don't know, right? So shit, dude, let's explain to everybody what the hell's been going on. Well, for the past couple of weeks, I had been contemplating moving careers and changing careers in a little bit. And no, I'm not doing this full time. But however, my current employer, and I'm sure a lot of you can probably kind of relate to, there's certain companies when they start shuffling or things around, they start shifting. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of pieces that you really don't know where you stand and where you're going to be landing, right? And in this particular company that I worked with, that I really enjoyed working, the branch manager at the company that I was at, and my direct boss, he decided to embark on a different career change. And the company obviously did not necessarily take it too well, and they decided to part ways and not necessarily counter to try to retain him. And I had been showing interest in advancing opportunities within this company because I thought it was a good fit for me. But unfortunately, I didn't quite pan out. So another offer came about for a different role, not a lateral position, but something a little bit more with more responsibilities, etc. And the monetary compensation that I would be getting with my new employer now far exceeded my previous one. And just because I knew or felt that the way that the current situation was with my previous employer, I knew that it wasn't going to go anywhere. So I decided to part ways, and I accepted the offer from my current employer now, and I made the switch. And as you guys know, that takes time, transition. I need to learn everybody, need to learn the habits, need to learn the accounts, start networking again, and start building my pipeline once again that I once had in the previous company. So With that being said, that takes time. And then on top of that, we had my daughter who just came on to this brand new team that I think I brought up in a couple episodes before, which is doing comp soccer. And if you guys do or do not understand the levels of soccer, there's a couple of tiers. There's bronze level, copper level, silver level, gold level. Then you have gold, then premier, then pre-ECNL, then ECNL, then GA. It just gets ridiculous, right? Now, the way that it looks right now in soccer, it can be somewhat convoluted, and that soccer gets a lot of hate because a lot of the comp sports, even travel baseball, basketball, football, whatever it is, there's a couple of reasons, right? There's just a couple things. So either you want your kid to be a sports person and you want them to really commit and be heavily invested in this particular sport, or you're doing it just to keep them busy. In my particular case, I noticed that our middle child, although she's not the quickest, she's extremely strong and very, very cerebral. And she had very good success playing sports. So we decided to pursue that even further, right? So we put her on this team that she's been on for 4 years now. And she's doing great. She's doing amazing. She went up to their first team, which is the one that she's playing with now, with the other group, a bunch of girls, including some of her best friends, and she's happy. And the team is definitely clicking in all cylinders. And again, that takes time because then you have all these practices and you're getting used to the parents as well because it's a whole different dynamic, a whole different culture. So you kind of have to weather it and take it one day at a time. So unfortunately, because my mind has been focused in so many things, there's been very little effort on my end. Now, again, that's on me, to try and do something, record some episodes, whether it be 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, but I just haven't had time. Fortunately, I had some pre-recorded episodes that I just re-released, and those are the ones that you're seeing now on YouTube. If you look at the most recent episodes, then YouTube was being a little weird, and I need to take a look at an episode because there's one that I made, I think a couple of weeks ago, that I got a notification from YouTube saying that there was some content in there that was copywritten, which I need to really re-listen to it and make sure what the hell that was, because I got to fix that because I'm not sure where that came from. But anyway, I digress. So what we got into the past couple of episodes has been men's mental health and how we handle parenting, men in general, and also kind of talking to the ladies and queens out there that are single moms themselves and trying to give you guys a different perspective from a dad's point of view, right? I mean, this is what it is. A lot of the men that are listening to these podcasts and episodes don't necessarily have the best, I guess you could say, communicative abilities and the abilities to talk and speak and generally speaking, just kind of speak their mind. They're very, very introverts. And a lot of men in general tend to be that way. We're just not like that. We express ourselves in a very different way that it doesn't necessarily fly with a lot of folks. I'm going to pause 1 second. I got to change the lighting real quick. Hold on 1 sec. And we're back. There you go. Much better. So one of the things that I definitely wanted to discuss about in the particular episode was men's mental health and how we communicate. And I think I spoke on that in the previous episode. And today I would actually want to share a particular story, and I would love feedback from you guys, from the audience, in regards to what you guys think is the scenario or the circumstances and situation, or what advice you would have to that particular person that's kind of going through it, because some of you might be going through the same shit. And I'm going to share two stories, one of which is very close to my heart, and another one is that I'm just going to say it and have you guys just kind of give me your feedback as to what you think that is, right? So let's start with the first one. So imagine yourself, so grab your cup of coffee real quick before I dive in. If you guys want to go to the bathroom, put pause on the video, go drop a deuce, a leak, get your snack, get your coffee, and we're going to talk, right? So turn the radio up real quick, and I'm going to share the story. Okay, you're back? All right, good. So check this out. So someone who I know and I'm very fond of, and they were very young when this happened. And they had a very solid upbringing, very stable household. And you can say that there was every ample opportunity for this young lady to have a very successful and fruitful future. Everything was provided. in the sense that you had a lot of emotional support, financial, and a very stable household. And I think I've spoken about on this particular thing a lot is that when you have both parents in one household, there is a certain balance that is not really comparable and it's not really necessarily transferable to real life. And what I mean by that is there's nothing wrong with being raised by a single mom or a single dad or a single parent. Nothing wrong. But when a child is able to see during their development two perspectives on relationships, how to manage their emotions, managing their bills, right? How do they handle rejection? How do they communicate? Things like that. If they're only seeing it and getting only one perspective, they're only going to necessarily know one way to do certain things. And until they develop cognitively a little bit more and until they get older and kind of live life a little bit more, they're going to be able to understand the other half. And hopefully they don't fall into the bad habits of people just teaching them the wrong shit and how to manage stuff the wrong way. You cross your fingers on that as a parent, but it is what it is. Anyway, so this particular young lady graduated high school, and she was always the type of person that was a very optimistic individual, very sweet, very loving. She still is. And she met a gentleman who also was a very, very personable, likable guy. I remember meeting them a few times and they seemed like they had their shit together. Now, I did not know his particular upbringing and things like that. So obviously you don't know these things until you get to know people and how they handle, and you start seeing the different side of them. That's not as cookie cutter. You start seeing more of the cracks in their armor, so to speak, and it is what it is. Unfortunately, with them in particular, their relationship didn't necessarily work out, and she ended up getting pregnant. Now, when she got pregnant, it was one of those aha moments where basically they were kind of forced into developing and forcing this relationship into maybe what it wasn't, right? And sometimes when you're in a relationship and half of your partner or your partner is wanting more, a little bit more stability, more focus, something a little bit more serious, and you might not necessarily be with it. There's always a challenge because you have to look and you have to look from within and self-reflect whether you're actually going to be in the same boat or maybe this is not for you and how it's going to pan out. Now, instinctively, you don't want to be messed up and kind of leave the parent high and dry because you and them are not going to work out. So you force yourself to be in a relationship. However, that kind of creates a very toxic environment because you're being with somebody you don't really want to be with. And kids are not stupid. Kids are very smart and they're receptive. And when they see the warmth in a couple, that's what they embrace. That's what they latch onto. And that's what resonates with them. And that's why they try to emulate right back and replicate with someone else. Now, if they see abuse, they interpret that as normality in their mind, as messed up as that might be. How you speak to the mom, how the mom speaks to the dad, you're teaching tolerance and you're setting the standard of how the relationship work balance should go. So remember that. But in this particular situation, this couple decided to work through it. And unfortunately, it just did not pan out. And he decided to do shenanigans and do really, really reckless, stupid shit. I'm sure he had his reasons. And they broke up. So unfortunately, because of that, she went through this whole entire journey of her pregnancy all on her own or by herself. However, she had a very phenomenal support system, which cannot be said for a lot of people that are probably listening. There's a lot of moms out there who probably had to raise the kids on their own, had to hustle on their own, had to have 2 or 3 jobs, and leave the kids with whoever the heck could take care of them. Now, that carries a higher risk on itself because now, as we get older, we see a lot of these stories and really tragic stories about people, taken advantage of, and a lot of really dark, stupid things have happened to children that I'm not going to dive into because it's a topic that is very sensitive and I don't want to do that. So when that happens, it can spiral out of control. But in this particular situation, the child, she was born, or the baby was born. And now you're dealing with the co-parenting and the two relationships and how they're going to work together. However, the gentleman in particular had his own set of challenges, had his own set of demons that he was battling with that didn't necessarily translate well to being a functional human being. And what I mean by that is that he was genuinely a very nice person. However, the way he managed his emotions You could say it could be a little bit reckless, a little bit spontaneous, and kind of shooting from the hip with zero filter. So it turned into you either like the guy or you don't. And in this particular case, the way that he was expressing himself towards this other individual who just had the baby was not necessarily the best or healthiest of examples of what a relationship or co-parenting should be. And then you kind of start digging in a little bit into the gentleman's past. And without going too much into his past, but he came from a broken home. And his mom was forced to raise one, two, three, I think 4 kids all on her own with her support system that had their own set of challenges. So obviously, childhood was not peaceful in that particular household. And then the dad, his dad in particular, had his own demons, had his own challenges, had his own coping mechanisms that didn't necessarily translate very well to being a good father. So you can kind of see the picture I'm painting, right? So just by listening to that particular scenario, what do you think the outcome was and how do you think he behaved? Well, he behaved like a complete stereotype of what it's supposed to behave like if you have a broken, dysfunctional relationship. And him not being able to properly communicate and how properly express himself in the healthiest of ways translated into him being very disrespectful, being very vocal, very disrespectful, and I think I said that twice. And just being a complete jerk towards this young lady who didn't have nothing to do with it. Now, how does she react to it? She instinctively tries to give the gentleman a chance and a benefit of the doubt and understands his upbringing, so they try to work it out. Yeah, they tried and failed, unfortunately, because while it lasted maybe 2 or 3 months, his issues never went away because he never addressed with them and he never coped with them the healthiest of ways. So obviously it's not going to work out. She's not going to tolerate the stuff, and they ended up breaking up. So now she's raising the kid on her own with her support system. Thank goodness she's got one. But now this is where it could get very challenging. This is where co-parenting is extremely important. I guess the best way I can explain it is, at what point do you reach a limit and level of I've had enough that you decide to put your foot down? Because without going too much into it, there's been a lot of circumstances and scenarios in this particular relationship that I believe that the young lady could have had plenty of opportunity to just completely deprive the man from being in the kid's life. So she has chosen not to do that after numerous cases and numerous examples and a lot of people around her telling her to do it and taking him to court and get full custody of the kid. Because when they go to that gentleman's household, the way he copes with problems, the way he addresses issues, the way he problem solves is not the healthiest of ways. And it causes a lot of confusion within the child who's still in development. So when they're not with that parent, they are with the mom, and the bad habits come with the kid now with the mom now, and then she has to fix them and sends them right back in her mind, repaired or fixed. And then he comes back with the old shit with the old habits. And then so that creates kind of like a really weird dynamic between the two that still to this day has not seen a remedy. So what should she do? It's tough, right? But this is one example of when you have two parents that are not together and trying to, in their own mind, raise the kid the way they know how. And it's not in line. And I'll give you another story. So there is another gentleman that I know very well that unfortunately, he made some really tough choices. And somebody he knew, got pregnant. She's pregnant now. The baby was just recently born. And now he is going to be a dad. That comes with a lot of responsibility. And a dad is not just somebody who's just a donor. It's somebody who's actually there through thick and thin and actually shows every single little bit of interest to try to raise that child, and not just their morals, but their beliefs, and trying to teach them to be an adult and actually function in a healthy one. not being baggage for somebody else to repair or fix. Although there's a lot of people out there though that are probably dating other people that are probably good with, oh, or they're notorious for dating people because they want to fix them. If you are that type of person, you're doing more harm to yourself than good, because you're never going to be properly happy and you're never going to be peaceful in a state of mind. So if you are not ready for that type of commitment, don't even try it, because they could go down the dark road. I've known of people that have gotten into these relationships with people knowing that they have their own set of issues, and they're trying to fix other people, and instead it spirals out of control. And then COVID hits, and then people end up having really shitty coping mechanisms, end up being alcoholics, which alcoholism was really, really rampant during COVID. Yours truly as well, because I was drinking quite a bit around that time. And it could lead to really, really shitty situations, even divorces, etc. But I digress. So now this gentleman now has a kid here or on the way, and he is still trying to fix himself and trying to find himself and how he wants to manage and be a parent. That, to me, in my opinion, is you're doing the child a disservice, because you yourself are really legitimately not mentally ready nor stable to have a functional family. And I know that there's a lot of people that say you're never going to be ready to be a dad. I know you're never going to be ready to be a dad, but at least you want to have some sort of stability, some sort of solid foundation, whether it be monetary or at least mental, more than anything, that you have the mental aptitude to raise that child and act correctly. But no, this person doubled down, and him and his first baby mama unfortunately didn't work out, and he had another partner with the same result. And now we are in a particular conundrum. We're in a predicament, because now what do? Now you're not only impacting one woman's life, but you've impacted two. And you're impacting yourself, because now you have to find that balance of what kid is going to get more priority, if any. We're talking about three different households. One household and support service or support system from him. One household, which is the one baby mama one, and then the other support system, which is baby mama two. What do? And as a man, I have to honestly look from within and ask for the best of advice and support that I can think of, and come to terms with that I made a mistake. Not in the sense that, oh shit, I'm going to fix it, meaning that like, oh my God, you're going to do something reckless, but you're going to have to fix it now, because now you really have to man up. Now you really have to get those jobs. Now you really have to save up. Now you really have to balance your life and priority for what you really need to do for these kids. Because the problem is that sometimes when you have three different households, one of them is going to go awry. One of them is going to go south. And what you do not want is for that child, because you remind them, or that child reminds that person of you so much, that they become kind of basically like the black sheep in that family, like the unwanted child, because there are diabolical ass women out there that do treat their kids that way. And I know of people in particular that, because they broke up with a certain someone and they had a child, and they treat that child differently because it reminds that mom of that ex-boyfriend or the ex-partner in particular. And ladies, I don't know why the hell that is, but that's what it is. And if you don't know that that's what you do, then that's a problem. But that's why mental health is so damn critical in acknowledging and realizing when you're making your own issues and having your own mistakes. You don't want to bring children in this world with having to navigate weird, strange relationships and co-parenting between parents. I understand that no relationship is perfect. It's not supposed to be, but you got to have a solid foundation or a balance. And ladies, this is my advice to you, and I think I've said it in previous episodes before. If you are dating somebody because you genuinely enjoy them, or whether it's physical is one thing, but make sure you take the proper protection measures, this goes to men as well, that if you're not ready for a family, take care of yourself. And if your thought process is, oh, I would definitely want to create something with this gentleman, really, really think about it and have a long, in depth conversation with that human being because they're entitled to know as well. And so, but this is where we're at. We have a lot of kids coming in and a lot of young children who are definitely going through shit. And just be blessed that you have a solid support system that you do if you have one. If you don't, I recommend that you look up to a lot of agencies and get a lot of outreach programs out there and try to have a conversation with people because your health, mental, it impacts you. It stays with you. You're not going to be drinking your sorrows away. You're not going to get belligerent and super drunk or super high and think that when you're sober and you crash, you're not going to have the same problem. The problem is still going to be there. The responsibilities are still going to be there. The bills are still going to be there. The mortgage is still going to be there. You're just going to forget about it during that moment in time that you're completely inebriated. But that's not the healthiest ways of or coping mechanisms at all. You have to really honestly think about that. But the other thing that I saw on the news too, and I definitely want to preach on it right now, is if you take kids into sports, my parents that are out there, cheer for the entire team. And it's something that I've noticed in now for 3 to 4 years doing comp soccer. I noticed that in other teams doesn't necessarily translate with this one, but in previous ones that we have been a part of, we've noticed that there's been certain kids that you celebrate more than others. And in this particular case, if you are that parent, cut it out. If your kid is part of a sport, clap for the kid that just scored. Clap for the kid that made the mistake. Clap for the kid that fails. Clap for the kid that is struggling, it's shy, and it's barely coming into terms and developing into being a better player. Just because your kid is great and good, that's good for you. But remember, there is so many developmental levels of children. What your kid might be good at, which is this sport, they might do really shitty when it comes to other attributes and other factors. So celebrate everyone equally. That is my strongest and biggest advice, because sometimes I see a lot of parents really rooting for these particular handful of children so hard, but yet completely ignore and not really celebrate others. And this is one thing for me, it's a pet peeve, because my daughter, she plays center back in soccer. In soccer, defense and goalies are the ones that are rarely ever celebrated. You often you hear about Ronaldo, the Messis, the Vinny Juniors, the Ibrahimovic, the Alexi Lalas, the Landon Donovans, like, you know, the Mbappes, the Holland, the Thierry Henry, the greatest forwards and strikers you can think of. Romario, think about the Brazil crew from back in the day, Kaká, and all those guys. But you rarely get any sort of celebratory or claps for the Sergio Ramos, Busquets, the Xavis, the Pujols, the Piques, the Cafus. Bet you didn't even know who the fuck those people were. That's my whole point. That's the defense, though. They were some of the greatest, Maldini, some of the greatest defenders to ever play the sport, yet they never get celebrated. Or even the greatest goalies you'll never, ever hear about. So if you guys are in comp sports, it's great to celebrate offense, but let's also celebrate defenses as well. Clap for a good tackle, clap for a good slide, clap for a good clear out, because those kids are playing just as hard as the forwards and may not necessarily get the celebrations and shit, but come on, let's do it. Even in baseball, celebrate the catchers, celebrate the shortstops. Shortstops get a celebration a lot though, because they do a lot of the flashy plays. They're all involved in the game, but celebrate every single position, regardless of the level of importance of whether a kid is a starter or not. Clap for a kid for coming in for a sub. Clap for a kid for doing a great play. And I try to do that even with my daughter's current team. I clap for everybody in the team, because not everybody is on par. Not everyone is at the same level. My daughter's not at the same level as some of the kids that are also forwards, but that's okay. Her strengths are defense. She's not a forward. She's not a mid. She's growing to be. So that is my only advice. Let's keep it on par. But with that being said, let's stay on the topic, men's mental health. Feel free to reach out. I would love to get your feedback as far as advice or what you guys think maybe those particular people should do. Or maybe it's a good time for you to self-reflect on what I just mentioned and see what makes sense. Do you blame the woman for having high hopes and dating somebody? No. Do you blame the other gentleman for unfortunately, having two relationships that resulted in pregnancy? No. Because now it's time for you to man up. Now it's time for you to come to the plate and take a swing and man up and be a father and be a dad. Based on the people that I know whom I love and care for, the importance, and I say this again at the very end and closing part of this, dads are so important in a kid's lives. We don't necessarily get celebrated often because moms do a hell of a lot of work, but they're in the forefront. I compare it to if you're playing soccer analogy. Sorry guys, but I compare moms like the strikers. They are the Messis, the Ronaldos, they are the Ronaldinhos, making it happen up front. What you see, what you do, there's mom, there's mom, there's mom, there's mom. Dads are like the defense. They're on the backside. They're on the back 40. We don't get celebrated often, but damn it, we matter. Because if we're not there and if we're shitty, we get scored on religiously. And that poor goalie has no chance to do anything good. But if you have both a good solid offense and a good solid defense, you have a very, very well balanced team, you can't be beaten. The same concept is for the parents. The dads matter too. The ones that actually care. Because I've known some people that are complete assholes, and I'm not going to lie about it. I've known of dads that have 10 kids and think that's something to celebrate and be fucking cool with. There is dads out there just kind of having kids all over the place with very zero responsibility. Well, yeah, look at those kids. Look how they raised. Look how they grew up. They're being raised by a single parent who's trying her best. I mean, I hate to be like really doom and gloom, but it's true. But dads do matter. And if you are a dad and if you are checking all the boxes as far as being a provider, emotional support, not just for your children, for your spouse, pulling your weight and having that balance, kudos to you and mad respect, and pat yourself on the back. But if you are the father that's trying and trying and trying and is being completely shut out by your ex because of whatever reason, fight it. Take him to court if you really want to. There's opportunities there, but do not use, and I think I said this in the previous episode, do not use every single time you get shut down for being available and accessible to that child as a reason why not to do it. The kid wants to see you. So be seen and be present and do not be absentee. So with that being said, God bless, stay safe. Enjoy the rest of the episode. I will be posting this, I think tomorrow I'm going to be editing, I hope, and we'll kind of go from there. So thank you very much for listening and tuning in, and road to 100,000 subscribers still continues. Look for us on TikTok, look for us on social media, on all the other platforms, podcasts, etc. NFL is coming up just around the corner, so I will have some shit to talk about in regarding Brandon Ayuk and what that looks like. Also, Aldon Smith, mental health, making good choices, and most of all, being a good parent and a good human being. So with that being said, God bless, stay safe. Good night.